I need you to knock some sense into me. I'm sure you can.
Yeah, I don't know.
I enjoy listening to you. I don't always agree with everything.
All right. Enough of this persiflage.
So, you want my question?
I'm certainly not going to get myself in trouble by telling you what to do.
That makes great sense. Gosh, that's good.
Did I overwhelm you with words and wisdom?
I've got 7 kids. I feel like I could call you every day.
Wait, you're telling me I'm wrong?
Yes, I am, Dr. Ray.
You just need to tune in to Dr. Ray, honey. He's got all the answers.
Am I right or am I right?
Probably.
Now, from the studios of Living Bread Radio Network in Canton, Ohio, the hometown of Mother Angelica, here's Dr. Ray.
I got a probably. That's better than a possibly. Way better than a no. You missed it totally. Very nice to have you with me on The Doctor Is In. I have given the privilege. We're going to head down to EWTN. We'll be recording the show from there, still live. I will have to talk louder, though, because I'll be farther away in the EWTN studios. Gone down to do a little work down there and getting to meet some of the people who have become dear friends over the years. You know who you are. So, looking forward to it a lot. 877-573-7825. Tough number to remember. Bounces all over the place. Try this. 877-57-equal. Now, some people have said, why do you say equal? Because the numbers on your phone have letters associated with them. And you push those numbers that have the letter E, Q, U, A, and L. 877-57-equal. If you have a question about something going on in your life, circumstance, situation, something that went on in your life way back, something that could go on in your life in the future, or someone in your life, I'm struggling here to like this person. I know I'm supposed to. What do? I don't like them, and they're really part of my family. By the way, I'm pretty much 99.99% loving. I pretty much love everybody in China and India and most of Europe, I think. There's nobody in Europe I don't love. It's just that handful of people that are very close to me. That's the tough part. But if you go by the numbers, I'm very, very loving, 99.999%. Or if you want to help somebody out who's called in and you've had a similar circumstance, or you can disagree with me. That's risky. That's very risky. You have to have tremendous self-confidence. Willing to be wrong. I was wrong. I was. Willing to admit it, too. 2002. Yeah, I remember the day. I remember because I thought I was wrong, and it turned out I wasn't. So I guess you could say I was wrong. All right, don't take me serious on that, please. No emails. Dr. Ray, how could you say that? Anything else? Yeah, generic question. A couple of things. My wife went out and bought a very nice barbecue grill. And, you know what? That's a manly thing. So I told my wife, I said, honey, I'm going to give you the night off. The way we're going to do this, we're going to set it up. So we did. Now, here's how it went down. My wife bought the food, and then she made the salad and prepared the vegetables. She made the dessert. She got the meat ready and put it on a tray, along with the necessary cooking utensils, and she took it to me, who was I was sitting in a rocker beside the grill. I then put the meat on the grill. Then she goes inside to organize the plates, the cutlery. She comes out to tell me, Ray, the meat is burning. I thank her, and I ask her if she will bring me a beer while I deal with the situation. In a few minutes, I take the meat off the grill, and I hand it to my wife, who then prepares the plates, the salad, the bread, the utensils, the napkins, the sauces, and brings them to the table. After we eat, she clears the table, prepares and serves the dessert, and then does the dishes. Most important. Everybody then praises me. and thanks me for my barbecue cooking efforts. I asked my wife how she enjoyed her night off. Seeing her reaction, I just conclude she just, I don't know, it's hard to please, I guess. It's the only thing. All right. Don't take me serious. I can't even do that. 877-57 equal. Many years ago, you know you're old when you can start talking decades. Many decades ago, I was practicing softball. We used to go out a lot. I'm in the outfield because I played left field. Back then, I could tell my legs, run! And they would say, how fast? How far? Well, towards the end of my career, I told my legs, run! And I heard this. Yeah, there's a snickering. I'm in the outfield. Again, I was in my probably late 20s. Took off after a ball. It was well hit. I was sprinting. And back then my head didn't bounce as I ran after the ball. Didn't quite get there. It went off the tip of my glove. And that was disappointing enough. But then I started to feel this weird feeling. My heart started racing and accelerating. Now one might say, yeah, but you sprinted. What do you expect? Yeah, but I'd sprinted a lot, and I knew a sprint heart after effect. This was no sprint heart after effect. Felt like it was thumping in my chest at about 180 to 200 beats per minute. And I was really sucking wind. Much more so than I would after a normal sprint, and it wasn't going away. That's the difference. It wasn't going away. It was a weird feeling. I felt lightheaded. And my first thought was, what the heck is this? What's going on here? So I knelt down out there, and I waited for this to pass. It didn't. After a couple of minutes, I headed toward the backstop, and there were bleacher seats behind the backstop, so I sat there, pondering what's going on. I remember thinking, this feels like it would be a panic attack. My body was sort of gone haywire. High level of anxiety. Anxiety on steroids, literally. After about 6-8 minutes sitting there in the backstop, body systems started to return to normal. Breath came more easily. Heart was slowing down. Lightheadedness was gone. And I thought, so, that's kind of what a panic attack feels like. Now, I dealt with a lot of clients who've come to my office totally frightened because of a panic attack or more that they had. They were wondering what was wrong with them. But now I'd had my own, and I could personally experience one. Did I panic about the panic? No, I didn't. Why did I take this detached reaction, which is, oh, so that felt like a panic attack? One, because I knew panic attacks are sometimes very random, puzzling, inexplicable. Two, I hadn't really had any kind of other health symptoms prior to that. Everything was going just fine. I was in my late 20s, early 30s. I'm pretty sure it wasn't my heart. Plus, I settled right down. What brought that on? Afterward, we went to get something to eat, standing in a fast food line, looking up at the menu. And I realized I hadn't eaten in over 24 hours. The schedule just bounced me from one place to the next with practice that night. I went straight to practice. Fielded balls for about an hour to an hour and a half. burning up all kinds of energy, whatever I had left. That last rush after that long ball plummeted probably my blood sugar. It was already low to begin with. So down it went. Low blood sugar will create that kind of very edgy, if you will, physiological reaction. And I realized that's far and away likely what it was. Why didn't I panic about being panicky? Well, as I said, I kind of understood panic attacks. I wasn't really afraid of it. I more or less studied it. Pretty much everybody will confess to having a panic attack or more. They are odd things. The body reacts. Sometimes if a person is under prolonged stress, their body can surge. Sometimes fatigue, body can surge. There are a big number of underlying health conditions that can cause anxiety, but here's the good news. Vast majority of the time, most of the time, the panic does not indicate something wrong. Now, when somebody has one, they'll tell me in my office they either went to the emergency room immediately because they thought something serious was going on. Most often they point to the heart. They get scared. They get very scared about being scared. Some of them, and I've had them tell me this, when they get a clean bill of health, at least as clean as could be, from what the emergency room assesses, they're still not comforted. Why? They missed it. They must have missed something. Because I know that was the worst feeling I'd ever had. It was awful. It was terrible. Felt like I was going to die. Wondering if I was having a heart attack. My body's turning on me. And their interpretation of the panic feeds the panic. They're very anxious about being anxious. I think part of the reason that my panic episode, if you will, quit in 6, 7, 8 minutes was because I wasn't terrified of it. I was detached. Some people say I'm attached, but I was detached. Kind of studying it, wondering about it. And I calmed down. I also knew it would pass. I'd had enough experience with people telling me about their panic attacks that it would pass. It's going to pass. You're going to run out of chemicals. Can't stay at that level. If you've had a panic attack and you've gotten a clean bill of health, then you needn't fear another panic attack. Your fear of a panic attack will make it more likely it's going to happen again. 877-573-7825. That is the number to call to get onto the program. If you've got some questions about anxiety, which is, by the way, the number one symptom that brings people to the attention of a counselor, give me a call. I'll help you out there. 877-57-EQUAL. I'm Dr. Ray.
Do you own popular index mutual funds or ETFs? If so, you're automatically own shares of companies that conflict with your moral beliefs. Ave Maria mutual funds are managed to conform to pro-life and pro-family values. Long-term investors can invest in the no-load Ave Maria mutual funds. The experienced professional portfolio managers make decisions based on investment fundamentals and pro-life values. You can learn more about Ave Maria mutual funds today at 866-AVE-MARIA or visit AveMariaFunds.com.
I don't think we've replaced our siding since we moved in 20 years ago. But I'm sure it's still fine, right?
Better call Mighty Dog Roofing of Ann Arbor.
Damaged siding can cause mold buildup and weaken your home structure. Protect your family by calling local Catholics Dan and Mary Flanagan at Mighty Dog Roofing for a free inspection of your siding, roof, or windows. Mighty Dog Roofing, 734-224-4916. That's 734-224-4916. Marcus Peter hosts Unveiling the Covenants.
What is a covenant? It's a vowed exchange of lives which results in an unbreakable family bond. Throughout Scripture, God seeks to espouse all mankind to himself in an unbreakable covenant bond. His covenantal love is a free gift, but it necessitates a response from us. We are free to accept or reject it. Let's learn what this means as we unveil the covenants.
Saturday mornings at 11 and Sunday morning at 9:30 a.m. on Ave Maria Radio.
Location, location, location. These are the three most important factors in real estate. The same might be said for colleges. Trudging through snow to get to an 8 a.m. statistics class is a much different experience than breezing by a palm tree to the raucous applause of a laughing gull. With the average temperature of 84 degrees and wetland nature as your backdrop, it's no wonder students tend to stay once they visit our campus. Ave Maria University, your future location, location, location. Visit avemaria.edu.
This is Dr. Ray. Thank you for joining me. 877-57-EQUAL. Just got a call from a chiropractor. Thank you, sir. How do I know it's a sir? Because Eric told me it was a sir. And he mentioned, did I know if I was having fibrillation? No, I wasn't, because I took my pulse, and it was steady. But that's true. Heart arrhythmias very commonly can throw people into a panic attack. Heart arrhythmias heads kind of the list in terms of provoking something like this. No, I didn't. The lightheadedness is interesting because you figure if you do start to get that kind of heart flutter, you're going to get lightheaded. Interestingly enough, in an actual panic attack, one of the fears that people have is that they'll faint. Now, our chiropractor caller would know this. The chances of fainting during a panic attack are almost zero, close to zero. And the reason is fainting is usually, most often, caused by lack of blood to the brain. Got to get up there. Your brain's not in your foot. Although I was accused of that when I was a kid. Got brains in your toes, Raymond? That was back when parents weren't quite so worried about teasing you. So in a panic attack, blood pressure goes up. So it makes it less likely you would faint. You might get lightheaded a little bit. But that was a good question by our caller, which is, how do you know it wasn't AFib? As I said, I checked it. It wasn't fluttering. But it was fast. Man, was it fast. Okay. Now, one good thing about getting to be my age, couldn't go that fast anymore. You know, my maximum heart rate at that time was probably about 200 beats a minute. It ain't there now, that's for sure. There's one thing nice about getting old. You can only get it up so high in beats per minute. Now, interestingly enough, let me give you that number again, 877-57-EQUAL. Definitely want to hear from you. Interestingly enough, panic attacks often attach anxiety to the place where they happened. Let's say you're in a crowd. You're in an event, big event. And it's an event where maybe bodies are too close. You know, a sporting event, a concert, even church. That's part of my theory as to why a lot of people don't go into the middle of the pew. They say that idea of people on both sides of them a little bit too tight makes them nervous. So if I were afraid of a similar attack happening again, my first question would have been, well, where's it most likely to happen? Well, in a place similar to where it happened. Playing ball. What if it happens in a game? Not practice. When I'm up, with the score tied, bottom of the seventh, 2 outs, winning run on third. You see, if I would have interpreted the panic attack as something that was going to be now unpredictable, it's going to be part of my new life, I raised the chances that it would affect me again in some other place. Many times, anxiety, because it's attached to where the panic occurred, person, place, thing. Back in the 80s, agoraphobia was the anxiety expression du jour. Agoraphobia, did you ever notice, too, that various types of expressions of anxiety get Greek-sounding kind of names? You got to get a name, if you're going to be scientifically savvy. Agoraphobia literally means fear of the marketplace. In other words, it's a pervasive anxiety, social type anxiety. Well, no, that's not really true. Okay, let me sever that connection. Social anxiety is more about situations. About people. Agoraphobia is most about places. So, given that, when you have a panic attack that sets in motion a fear of where it's going to happen again, it becomes more likely that you're going to start avoiding places that were similar to your original panic. If it gets extreme enough, pretty soon you're not going anywhere. The only safe place for you is at home. Agoraphobia oftentimes has its roots in an anxiety expression that occurred somewhere and spread. The clinical word for it is it generalized. It went beyond the original place. That is why my supposed panic attack did not go any further. Quite simply, I wasn't afraid of it. I didn't thereupon wrestle with, what if this happens again? Where will I be? That one was unpredictable. That could mean that future ones would be unpredictable. Where will I be? Will I have to leave church? Will I be at a ball game? In the stands? In the crowded stands? Where will I go? Where will I run to? I have to flee the scene. That's part of what panic attacks do to people. I'll tell you, I've had people in my office literally say their lives were pre-anxiety and post-anxiety. Pre-anxiety, they were fine. They lived their lives. They had freedom of movement, relatively calm in situations. But after that panic attack, and especially if they had a couple more, now it is post-anxiety, and their fear is, will I ever be well again? And the irony is, you will be well again, assuming nothing is underlying it that's serious. You will be well again if, and this is so critical, if you don't fear that happening again. Look what I did. I went and sat down. Now, some therapists advise you just continue doing what you're doing because you're going to be burning up energy quicker. I went and sat down. I knew this would pass. Unless something very, very serious was going on, and I had no evidence that was the case. I sat. And I just let calm come back. And it did. Now, was I still edgy after I calmed down? Yes, I was. And I was edgy into the restaurant. It went away. All of it went away after I had my first couple of sandwiches. 877-57-EQUAL, that's the number. We'll get to your calls. 877-57-EQUAL. I'm Dr. Ray, and I thank you so much for joining me here today. it. Thank you so much for joining me. Dr. Ray Guarendi here. Program Doctor is in Monday through Friday, 1 o'clock Eastern Time. Let us talk. Is Shireen ready there, Eric?
Hello?
Hello, Shireen. Thank you for the call.
Yes. Dr. Ray, here's the situation. I find myself for the last 10 or 11 years living by myself. I'm older. And I was attacked in an apartment about two apartments back. And I never connected it, but what I'm wondering is you were talking about agoraphobia and a panic attack and anxiety. Could that apply in a reverse order? Because I really am afraid to be alone, and when the sun goes down, I get really nervous.
Of course. When you have that kind of emotional upheaval, and I'm going to make a guess here, Shireen, that was about as intense an experience as you've ever had. Is it safe to say?
Yes.
Okay. So your whole body reacted. You were in protect, defensive mode.
Okay.
You had a fight or flight response, but you couldn't do either. You froze. In essence, you froze.
Yeah.
So because of that, the memory, the wired-in memory of that experience gets kicked off in what you would define as similar circumstances. At night, alone, defenseless, that kind of thing.
Okay.
Now, here's the good news I want to give you. You don't have to be worried about the anxiety reaction. Is it safe to say that when that happens to you, you start to think, what's wrong with me? Will I ever be okay? Am I going to live the rest of my life like this? This is really terrible. How's it going to affect me everywhere else? Safe to say that's the kind of stuff that floats all through your head?
Yes. Without knowing it, yes.
Yes, it is. One of the things you got to do is to replace all that with, now this is going to sound really weird, but it's true. This is just anxiety.
Okay.
That is all it is.
Okay.
It's unpleasant. I don't like it. However, it is not going to hurt me. It will pass, and I will be fine.
Okay.
I suspect there's a phrase, and I didn't get into this with my own experience. There's a phrase called anticipatory anxiety. I would bet, my dear, that as the sun starts to go down, you anticipate what you're going to react like. Here we go again.
Yes, I do.
Sure. And if you could take that away, if I could magically take that away from you, and you wouldn't be worried about here we go again. Instead, you'd say, hey, come on, do your best, give it to me. You would effectively neutralize it, my dear. I know you don't believe that, but that is the way it is.
Okay.
This is not just my opinion. This is backed by hordes of research. Okay. Anxiety fuels itself when you are afraid of it, when you think you're a weirdo, when you anticipate, here it comes again, I'll never be right, I'll never be normal. Heck no, you're perfectly normal. You just got your body reacting because of a memory.
Okay.
You do that, my dear. And I guarantee you're going to be calling me in a month, and you're going to say, Dr. Ray, I love you. You're just so wonderful. You're the sweetest, kindest, smartest guy I've ever known in my life. Well, you might not say that. I'll say it, and then you can agree.
Okay.
I want to hear from you again, please.
Pardon?
Thank you, dear. Thank you so much. 877-57 equal. Shireen is a classic illustration of anticipatory anxiety. In other words, I know this is going to happen again, and worrying about it happening again makes it more likely to happen again, and it makes it feel worse when it does happen again. That's so much of the dynamic of anxiety. If you could flip a mental switch and not be anxious about being anxious, it would go away so much faster. I know it would. Here's the paradox. Here's the irony. Anxiety is really an ugly feeling, especially when it gets intense. Very, very ugly feeling. And because it's so ugly, we naturally assume it's serious. Something is really, really wrong. And if it's not physical, it's psychological. What is with me? But what it is much of the time is the body just simply reacting. We have a system that God wired into us for our survival. It's a protective system. It's called the sympathetic nervous system. It gets us ready to fight if there's danger or threat. It gets us ready to run if there's danger or a threat. Everything orchestrates. It's a big, basically, when you're in danger, it's a big anxiety attack. Heart starts pounding. Breathing comes more forcefully and rapidly. Blood pressure goes up, widens up the blood vessels. Blood vessels receive the oxygen coming in. The pupils widen because you got to be better to see with, my dear. All of that is one big, finely tuned response designed by our Creator. And it's meant to be only when there's danger. Only when there's a real threat. Unfortunately, our mind is very, very tricky. And it tells our body there is danger when there isn't any. For Shireen, the danger was the dark. As soon as it got dark, she felt isolated, she felt alone, and the dark, in her mind, was the danger. And the danger kicked off this anxiety reaction in her body that was meant to be used for protection and defense. 877-57 equal. Got plenty of time left. If you want to give a call, we'll talk. Anxiety points to make before we go to another call. Bad news is anxiety, because it is meant to protect us. It truly is. Without fear, you could probably not take action with the cooperation of all your inners to defend yourself, or to protect yourself, or to survive. You've got to have that. On the other hand, most of us, in fact, don't have real danger in our lives. But anxiety intrudes a lot. I'm going to talk at some point down the road here on the mind-body connection and how the mind is just deceptive to the body. Let's go to Josie from Virginia. Josie, this is a great question. Very, very common. What's up, Josie?
Hi, Dr. Ray. Thank you for taking my call.
You are most well. I was nervous about it. I was a little anxious, but I thought, no. I gotta work through it. That's what I gotta do.
Well, hearing you talk, it was very interesting, and it reminded me of my parents, who they're getting older, and they're not remembering things. They also speak 2 languages, so that is a brain drain. But they seem to have, I think, anxiety about not remembering, and I don't know how to counsel them about, or maybe I shouldn't be, but I'm wondering if this applies to, for example, the fear of not remembering as you're getting older.
Well, there's 2 levels to this, Josie. The one is they apparently have enough insight to recognize that they're not recalling, they're not remembering, not only just situations, but how to do things. Now, that's the scary part. When you no longer, you look at your checkbook and you go, I quite don't know what to do there. Or you look at a remote for the TV and it confuses you. What is this button? So now that can be scary. And that's very common when people are in an early stage of dementia and they're realizing something is happening. This is not me. This is not normal. I got lost. I got lost coming home, and I've traveled that way 2,700 times. So yes, you're right. There can be an anxious there. Is that what is going on with your parents?
That is one problem with one parent, but both of them, because they alternate between English and their born language and French, sometimes they get upset about not remembering the words they want to use. And they get very upset about it. I think in my dad's case, he tends to want to stay quiet because of that.
He doesn't want to show that he's fumbling. Well, I'm not sure that that's any different.
Yeah.
Because he's not recalling something that was easy for him to recall 2 years ago.
Right.
And so you can ask him, Dad, did that scare you? Or, Dad, does that bother you? If you don't want to use the word scare. Does that bother you, Dad? How much does that bother you? Dad, well, what do you think it means? I'm losing it. Well, gee, Dad, if you think you're losing it, then I could see why you would be really upset. But maybe it's just some normal memory loss with getting older. You could probably reassure him that way, even though it might not be that, Josie. It might be the front end, and it's the most early signs of him being less competent mentally than he was. That could be. Okay. Is it only happening with the language, no place else?
No, with him, it's other areas too. My mom, it's the language. So I'm wondering if the approach is like what you said, which is the worry about it is taking away, energy from the ability to do it also. But for my dad, it might be multi-levered, but for my mom, I think it's primarily the language.
Think your dad's a little further along than Mom?
Possibly, yes.
Because it's starting to spread into some other areas where he was formerly competent.
Sure, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, he's in that, oh boy, he's in that terrible stage of it. If it is an irreversible deterioration, and you don't know that because you might want to get a good, complete, strong physical and see if there's anything they can find. But if it isn't, if it's just sort of how old's your dad, Josie?
He's 85.
Boy, roughly 50% of people have mild cognitive impairment at 85. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't always lead to more serious dementia. Sometimes it just stays cognitive impairment. Mm-hmm. But 85 is well within the age range of something like this starting to happen. So that said, I think maybe the best thing to do is to kind of help him to understand that, in fact, Dad, we've got to focus on what you can do, not what you can't do.
Right.
He's scared. I bet he's scared.
Yeah.
He's got to be.
But certainly saying focus on what you can do, not what you can't do, that's a good piece of advice. Thank you.
And, I at my age, I'm not as old as your dad, but I don't recall a lot of things. I say to my wife, I said, you know what? I've known that guy all my life. I can't remember his name. Or that actor. I grew up watching that actor. Why can't I recall that actor's name? So there is a certain amount of memory drift that happens with age. We just can't retrieve like we used to. Mm-hmm. And I play trivia, which is really foolish, because they give you 2 minutes. I told them, I said, you give me 2 hours, I can do it. I only got 2 minutes? Oh, come on! And I play with younger guys, and I watch them, but they just recall it right away quick. And as soon as they say it, I know it. It's like, oh, yeah. But to have me sit there and try to dredge it up, I'd score about 12 points. So, yeah, I think that's probably what's going on with Dad. What's your mom think of this?
I think she's trying to help him remember things, or trying to finish his sentences sometimes. I don't know if that's good or not.
Yeah, she thinks it's helpful, but that's just a reminder to him that he can't do it.
Right.
Yeah, maybe you talk to your mom and say, Mom, what do you think? What do you think about just letting him figure it out, at least right now, as opposed to she's kind of saying she's trying to be helpful, but she's jumping in. It's kind of like you do with a little kid,
right?
Who
that's right. Yeah.
When they try to tell you something and you're feeding them words because you don't want to wait for them to figure out how to say it. He might feel a little bit that way.
Okay. Well, you've given me some good food for thought. Thank you so much, Dr. Ray. God bless you, Dr. Ray. We love you. We love having you on the radio. Thank you.
That is my name, Dr. Ray? Okay. All right, I got it. They put it up here on the screen so I know when I refer to myself.
I tell my husband all the time, I say, you know what, if it goes well with me and a daughter-in-law that I hope to have someday, you've got to thank Dr. Ray, because I've been listening for years and years, and he's been preparing me for a daughter-in-law. So,
shut up your mouth.
That's what I tell him. Dr. Ray tells me to shut my mouth. I'm preparing for, I hope, a daughter-in-law someday, and he needs to thank you for it. Thank you, Dr. Ray. God bless you.
See you, Josie. Bye.
Okay, bye-bye.
As she says, this is Dr. Ray.
Do you own popular index mutual funds or ETFs? If so, you're automatically own shares of companies that conflict with your moral beliefs. Ave Maria mutual funds are managed to conform to pro-life and pro-family values. Long-term investors can invest in the no-load Ave Maria mutual funds. The experienced professional portfolio managers make decisions based on investment fundamentals and pro-life values. You can learn more about Ave Maria mutual funds today at 866-AVE-MARIA or visit AveMariaFunds.com.
The Heart of the Interior Life with Elizabeth Jingle.
St. Ignatius of Loyola offers great hope to those who are experiencing spiritual desolation in the 7th rule of his 14 rules for the discernment of spirits. When one is experiencing spiritual desolation, along with its various agitations and temptations, St. Ignatius teaches, since he can resist with the divine help which always remains with him, though he does not clearly feel it, for the Lord has taken away from him his great fervor, abundant love, and intense grace, leaving him, however, sufficient grace for eternal salvation. The divine help always remains in the darkness of spiritual desolation. Father Timothy Gallagher writes, since God always provides sufficient grace to withstand the trial of spiritual desolation, persons immersed in such desolation and seeking to resist can know with certitude that they can resist.
For more information, visit AveMariaRadio.net.
Underwritten in part by the following nonprofit.
Are you paying high prices with a traditional health insurance company that pays for things that violate your conscience? there's an alternative available. Solidarity Health Share is a community of faithful individuals and families that never share into immoral medical services, all while saving you money with prices starting as low as $85 per month for singles and $512 for families. Never fund another abortion with your health care dollars. Call 844-313-4999 to learn more.
Oh, yeah, that's nice. Where'd you find that one, Andrew? That's great. What is it about music? I mean, not people's tastes in music vary, but by and large, something in us is attracted to music. And you can't say that it's a survival mechanism that evolved over eons, because what? You're being chased by a dinosaur? Well, no, we didn't live at the same time as dinosaurs, but you're being chased by a wild animal and you're going to start singing, and the people who could sing best were most likely to survive? I don't think so. Speaking of being chased by an animal, that is anxiety. The only difference between anxiety that occurs because you're in danger or anxiety that occurs because your mind convinces your body that you're in danger, only difference is perception. You're being chased by a big mean dog, you're going to be scared. But you see that as normal. That's what you should be. But let's say that your uncle has a big dog, and he says, if you come over, I'll keep the dog downstairs. But you still don't go. You're not in any danger. The dog is downstairs. But your mind is saying, nonetheless, I know that dog is there. Maybe he'll bust through the door. Or hearing him bark like that just rattles me bad. So I avoid my uncle. I don't visit my uncle. As long as the dog lives there, I don't go. See, there's no danger. The mind is saying there's danger. But what would happen if you went anyway? And eventually you'd be sitting there sipping coffee and your anxiety would pass. The chemicals that fuel the anxiety reaction, they're not unlimited. They can't last forever. Even in the most terrifying situation, they abate. But most of us, when we're anxious, we want to make it stop. Make it go away. I'll avoid the situation that causes it. If it happens when I'm in the situation, I'll run from it. On this program some time back, I talked about people wanting the end seats at church. That's really true. I was in Rhode Island visiting my son and his wife, and I noticed we went to a church, rather large sanctuary, and I would say that wasn't full, but about 80% of the people were occupying the end parts of the pew. Now, again, that might be just preference. But I gotta believe if I went over to them and wanted to get in their pew, they wouldn't slide toward the middle. They'd get up and they'd let me in, and then they would retake that end seat. And I used to think a lot of that was just habit, wanting to sit on the end for various reasons. But I'm now convinced that for some people, it is anxiety-driven, especially when the sanctuary gets more crowded. There's something about, in their minds, being terribly ill at ease, being too close to people on either side. They're in the middle. And for some, I would imagine this is probably the case for some small number, if they were to get too anxious, they got to climb over 4 or 5 people to get out of the sanctuary. If you get anxious on the end seat, you just get up and get out. You create minimal disruption. And plus, people think you got to go to the bathroom. They could think that when you sit in the middle, but you're making a lot of high-profile movement. Dr. Ray, that's just you as a psychologist talking. I used to think that, but I don't anymore because I watched how clinging to that seat people are. They don't slide in. The vast majority of them either let you scoot by, because my wife and I always get in the middle. I know she doesn't like being by me either. Sometimes she wants to sit in a separate pew, but I insist that she sit with me in church. But most people, they'll just get up and let us go in, because they want that end seat for all their many reasons, one of which I believe is the worry about being uncomfortable in the middle. Got to go. Thank you so much for joining me here. I'm going to, good Lord permitting, I'll see you. I won't see you. I'll talk to you from Birmingham tomorrow and Thursday down at EWTN. Walk with God. And that definitely will help your anxiety. Our Lord says, do not worry about tomorrow.
For information on Dr. Ray's presentations, books, and CDs, visit drray.com and follow him on Facebook and Instagram. The Doctor Is In is a co-production of Ave Maria Radio and EWTN Radio and carried across the EWTN Global Catholic Radio Network.